And we continue to follow the latest on the migrant crisis in the Bay State and the proposal to the House to meet them or house them at Westfield State University.
Western Mass News reporter Kristen Burnell joining us after getting answers on where things currently stand with this proposal. Kristen,
Abby, State Senator John Velis is calling on the federal government to help with this crisis as he has received several complaints about the potential to house migrants at Westfield State University.
I do get that we need to house them because there's a lot coming in, but at the same time, I don't think that we have enough dorms and stuff to be able to hold them.
Students at Westfield State University are speaking out following a proposal to house migrants on campus. This as Governor Maura Healey declared a state of emergency last month due to the over 5,800 families seeking shelter across the Commonwealth. Governor Healey's administration recently toured Lammers Hall on the Westfield State campus as a potential shelter location.
The mission of higher ed is to educate students to prepare them for the workforce. Universities, colleges should not be considered until every other single option is exhausted.
State Senator John Velis tells Western Mass News there are other solutions to address the migrant crisis, strongly opposing this proposal.
There are existing buildings, infrastructures, things where we can do this.
He is now calling on the federal government to address the issue rather than the state.
This is the federal government's problem, and we are having to step up and deal with it. We don't have the funds, the resources, the bandwidth to do it, and we're not getting that help. So people are frustrated.
Now, Governor Maura Healey's office also confirming today that this still remains a proposed idea. She tells us in a statement in part, quote, "Our administration has in ongoing discussions with Westfield State about potentially utilizing space in an unused building. We are constantly evaluating options, including at other public institutions, to expand shelter capacity to ensure families arriving in Massachusetts have a safe place to sleep during this emergency." Coming up at 6, we'll take a look at other places in the Bay State that are currently housing migrants. For now, reporting live in studio, Kristen Burnell, Western Mass News.